Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. Joining me today is Brian Howard, host of Unfiltered Discussions, former host of, well, let's see what else. The Island of Misfit Podcasters.
Yeah, there's a few former podcasts in there, unfiltered discussions included. Let's see, what was there? There was unfiltered discussions, Raunchy Regret
Country
podcast,
Bleach Bros.
Bleach Bros podcast, and then I don't know if it's happening anymore or not, but for a while I was producing the unfiltered or Hateful Gnomes Music Hut. So, who knows if that thing's active or not? I have no clue. It was like dads came out of the woodwork after a year, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
shit just shows back up once in a while. I don't know.
it's like herpes. It just pops back up from time to time.
Just flares up in the worst spot.
Yep. Anyway, but yeah, Brian, very good friend of mine. I've met through podcasting. Wonderful human being, great dude. Can always look forward to talking to you and sitting around. And just we decided to sit down and bullshit it up, and we're going to record it and see what's worth getting out of this. And before we started recording, we were talking about some stuff, and Brian's got a story to tell. So take it away, B word.
We were talking on the back end about, I don't know, mustaches and beards and
Yes, mustaches
everything
and
else.
beard.
And oh, and then you were telling me about your Zoom window. So we're recording on Zoom, and you have one screen that's entirely just you, and then another screen that shows the both of us, I guess. And I said it makes for a great masturbation session. And what came about is I was living down in Vegas. So I lived in Vegas as a kid, but then I moved away, and I moved back as an adult. And when I moved back, there was this one particular strip club. It was called Treasures. And so just to kind of set it up for you, it was me and a roommate. My roommate was going to law school at the time, so he was broke, and I was broke. I was paying $1 million a month in child support and whatever else. So this strip club Treasures, if you had a Nevada ID, would not charge you any cover. And then from 4 to 6 during weekdays, they would uh, serve like DiGiorno pizzas and like jalapeno poppers and just different stuff, right? None of that cost money. And then they had uh, domestic drafts also did not cost any money. So we would literally show up to the strip club, get free beer, free food, and free cover, and there was no catch. So we didn't have to buy a dance. There was a million people in there, so somebody was going to tip. So we'd see free nipples as well. Like it was this whole thing. So I had some buddies of mine because I live in Northern Nevada now, and so I had some buddies of mine that lived in Northern Nevada that came down to visit me, and I took them down to Southern or to this to Treasures and showed them the free everything, and we had an absolute blast. And I was three sheets to the wind, and I was at home, and all my buddies left, and it was just me and the quiet time, the candle, you know what I mean. And so I was sitting there thinking to myself, romancing myself, hey, right now's a good time. And it had been a while, and so I start going down the process, and about halfway through it, I smacked my ass and I said, "Are you a good boy?" And I went, "Holy shit!"
Like, fuck, I'm a pervert.
I stopped the session right there. I blew the candle out and I said, "We are not doing this." that was not that was not what I expected of myself.
I did not see that coming to myself.
No, no, especially as a heterosexual male, asking my own self if I'm a good boy. I was like, oh, we're playing with some boundaries here, my dude.
Oh, yeah, as long as it's just the pinky tip, you're all right.
Hey, to each their own. I celebrate everybody's weirdness.
I,
Let's just
I
do it.
I don't judge as long as you're not, hurting anybody.
Stay away from the kids.
Keep them kids alone. Yep.
Stay away from the kids from a teaching standpoint, and stay away from the kids from a sexual standpoint. I'm pretty good with everything else. You can kind of do whatever you want.
Yep. I'm with you. I mean, it's one of the reasons we get along. I think we're judgmental in the exact same ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny too because being out of podcasting, I have so many things that I just want to talk about, and then I realize nobody cares.
Yeah.
so and so I listen to you on a weekly basis, and you give the good old rant, and I'm like, okay, yeah, Aaron's saying what I wanted to say. That's good. I for a couple, and even you were a guest on a podcast recently too, and I checked that one out. And I don't remember who the podcast was, but you guys were talking about Gen X and
Oh, with George Fuentes.
yeah. And so I listened to that one, and while you guys were talking about that, I was like,
That,
yeah, this is
World of
exactly
Blaze. That's the one.
yeah, World of Blaze.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I
But
said, good
I was
dude.
sitting there listening to it, and I was like, yeah, you guys are saying everything I'm thinking. It's just it's weird.
Yeah,
And Walt from B Raw, if he listens to
I
this,
love Walt. Yeah.
I get a kick out of Walt. He and I are like spirit animals from across the pond. I mean, and I say across the pond because we're really across the land because I'm on the West Coast, he's on the East. But yeah, it's crazy.
No, and
Absolutely crazy.
that's another one too. Walt's a great dude. I love Walt. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good sit down bull session. And it's kind of funny because I've there's been a couple of times recently where apparently things I've said have been construed by certain people as like I'm getting ready to hang it up. And it's funny because I mean, for a hot minute, I kind of was like, you know what? Maybe I should just maybe this ain't doing nothing. This is just stressing me out, making me more angry, running my blood pressure up every week just to get some content. And then I realized, no, I'm gonna be just as fucking angry whether I vent or not. That's probably what's preventing the stroke. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's just kind of funny because like I said, I've said a few things in past episodes in the last 6 8 weeks, whatever, that people have misconstrued because they're like, I have literally gotten messages like, "Motherfucker, you better not be going anywhere. I swear to God, I will drive to Illinois and slap you." And I'm like, dude, it's okay. And it'd be one thing if it was like one person was just like, dude, what the fuck? But I got multiple messages from people, all in the vein of like, you better not be going anywhere. I'll kick your ass, blah, blah, blah. We need you to stick around. And I'm like, I mean, I don't have this huge audience, but I got some pretty committed fucking people that tune in every week. And I'm not trying to, blow smoke up my own ass here, but I'm like, even you have a couple of times gotten me where it's like, is everything okay, dude? There's no episode today. What the fuck? I'm like, oh yeah, I fucked up and I scheduled it wrong. My fault. I hit PM. I'm bad. And it's like, so I'm just like, when I do start to get a little like, I kind of double back to that and like, no, dude, people have said they're going to kick your ass if you quit. You have to be scared. Be afraid.
Yeah.
These are unstable individuals if they're that angry over a podcast. But
Yeah, no shit. I always hear you say you're tens of listeners, but your tens of listeners are violent sons of bitches. So
oh well,
it's probably better
I'm
that you
sure a
stay
few
on the air.
the of the well armed variety. Yeah, God
Yeah.
bless.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have some pretty staunch 2A listeners.
As you should.
As I should.
Um, it's funny too because I know you talk a lot of politics, but you're always talking about how you don't want to be talking about politics, and I think that you're one of those people that kind of gets sucked into it because you see the idiocracy around it, you know. And it's not something that you're like totally venturing to do, but it's something that you have to call out the bullshit. And it's funny. I was listening to I think I was listening to Joe Rogan last week, I think, and he had like a mentalist or something on, and I was listening to it, and one of the that was so background. I work basically accounting. Okay, so my job is very dry. It's very numerical. I work on Excel spreadsheets all day. But it gives a good opportunity for me to just consume podcasts. So I've just been going through them, and Rogan's had quite a bit of good guests lately, but he had this mentalist on, and he basically said that if you 100% agree, they were talking about how can you tell if somebody's brainwashed, and he said if you 100% agree with a political party, there's a good chance that you're brainwashed. He says you have to be able to call out the things that you disagree with, and I think that that's when it comes into voting. I've voted red, I voted blue. I wish there was more purple to vote for. Occasionally, I wish there was a green. You know what I mean? It's,
I vote
but you
bold
have,
sometimes. So.
yeah. But same thing with religion. This is how you get into cults, right? Like if you don't question what you're believing, and find your foundation for it, you have a really good chance to be brainwashed. And so when going back to your podcast, I love that you're always talking about the asshole Cheeto for who he is, but then you're always calling out AOC on her bullshit. You know what I mean? There's this weird dichotomy of how you're able
I
to
just
play centrist even though it's center right now.
Yeah, it's center right now, but that's just because they keep moving the goalposts.
I
I like to
know.
think of myself as just being very centrist. I hate fucking everybody. Um,
Same.
and it is what it is, and that's one of the things I've found out on this little journey I've been on is I'm so not alone. It's like in a lot of ways I was just kind of like, no, I'm just this asshole, and I'm difficult, I'm grumpy, I'm the problem. And then I start at the show, and I get all these people that I meet that are really fucking cool. They're like, dude, you're so right. And I'm like, it's not that I agree with them because it's not that I'm happy that they're telling me I'm right. It's I found somebody else who feels the same way I do.
Yeah.
And that it's kind of like finding your tribe. It's like there's a lot of people out here who actually think this is all horse shit, and that makes me feel better about it because that means it's not just me, wrapping my head in tinfoil and yelling at a cloud. It's Yeah, something might actually be up there. Might, and with it, I mean, I'm not even talking like crazy conspiracy shit, just common sense shit where people are just like, dude, what the fuck, you know? But
When I was first voting, I first registered Republican because my grandparents were Republicans, and I thought that that was the way to go, and I had agreed with a lot of the things that they were talking about and whatever. But um, right before the Obama campaign in 2008, so this would have been 2006, seven, somewhere in there, I registered independent. And in Nevada, there's an equal amount of almost an equal amount of independents as there are the combination of Republicans and Democrats. So we're just this really weird state. So being independent's not anything new. But when I went to Las Vegas, I moved to Las Vegas right before the Obama campaign. And what I found was is that anytime you change a political party, your public information or your information becomes public. So your phone number, your address, all this sort of stuff, at least for the political establishments, because they're now trying to recruit you. So here I was living in the ghetto of Las Vegas, literally. It was the brown ethnicity and the black ethnicity, and I was on the borderline. We had drive-bys on a regular basis, and here I was, a grain of salt and a shake of pepper, scared for my life, more because of the cockroaches that were in my apartment, not necessarily because of the people that surrounded me. But what I found was is that I had people knocking on my door all the time saying, Brian, are you here? Are you Brian? And I'm like, who the fuck are you? And they're just trying to get me to vote for Obama. And that pissed me off so much, not because it was Obama, but it pissed me off so much that they knew about me that the first election I didn't vote for Obama. I was like, fuck Obama. I'm not, I was very immature in my voting back then.
well, that's all right.
But
The first election, I did vote for Obama, and it is what it is because I thought, hey, look, he's not geriatric.
yeah,
And
well,
then the
the
second
first election,
election, then I was like, fuck Obama
the
because
first election for Obama, he was dynamic. He was, I mean, you want to talk about a great speaker and somebody who had the ability to captivate a room. I mean, the promises that he made and the messages that he put out were phenomenal. I look back at that campaign and I think that campaign was wildly successful, and wildly successful not even because he was black. I think it was just ran immensely well.
it was a very well run campaign. He was a
Mm-hmm.
dynamic candidate. And like I said, he was not a fucking geriatric. That
Right.
was literally what got me to go, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to vote for this guy.
Yeah.
Not
I,
90.
Right. I didn't vote for Bushy in his first election. Um, but in the second election I did. And the reason why I voted for Bushy was because we're still kind of coming off of the 9/11 stuff, and it's still very patriotic. And that's a vote I'd probably want back, to be honest with you. I mean, we went into a never-ending war. And
Yeah.
that really bothers me. And in the whole podcast journey, I mean, I've had the privilege to talk with a number of people that are in the military and get their perspectives both on recording and off recording, and just to look at how much damage war does. I'm just not a fan of that, and I don't consider myself to be a hippie, you know what I mean, where it's like, peace love, or peace love dope or whatever. I just don't see senseless killing, and not
Yeah.
to
No,
not to bring it up, but
no, I
this
agree
whole,
with you. I mean, I don't have a problem with killing, but it has to be killing with a purpose. I
well,
mean,
look at World War II. Like, we were attacked. Like, that's the whole reasoning as we went into it. We were attacked, and we
that's
went in and
true.
said, okay, here we go. Um, but I don't know, like, this Ukraine thing scares the shit out of me because I see World War III happening. And it's like, I think that Trump was phenomenal in the Oval Office the other day. And there's a lot of people who are going to disagree with me, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, we gave, and on paper we've given 180 billion dollars worth of money to Ukraine, and I look at how much money we didn't give to Maui, how much money we didn't give to the Hurricane Helene victims, how much money we didn't give to all the fires in California.
Well, we
And
go worse than that. Look at the way they handled East Palestine, Ohio.
yep,
I
absolutely.
literally the entirety of the last 4 years has been America last across
Yeah.
the board. Every disaster, every emergency, every bad thing that happened was, at most given a pittance of like, oh well, here's $500. Good luck with rebuilding your entire
It
fucking
wasn't
thing.
even 500, it was 75.
Yeah, I mean, well, it
mean,
depends on the situation.
yeah.
But
Uh,
I mean, all of it's just and it's fucking retarded. And then you get this arrogant fucking oompa loompa of a man that comes in
he's
and
a more well-spoken Kim Jong-un.
basically, and
That's all he is.
well, we need your soldiers now. I mean, it's not enough that we've given him billions of dollars. Now he wants boots on the ground on top of it because they've thrown an entire generation into the fucking meat grinder.
And again, I'm not sitting here trying to be pro-Trump, but let's just say that it was Obama's White House, and this guy goes into Obama's White House and basically has the exact same demands. And Obama says, hey, you know what? We're not looking for a war. We're happy to help you out. We'd like to have this mineral deal because we feel like people aren't going to attack you because our name is tied into it. And then he throws a little arrogant fit in front of the media, and Obama says, you know what? If you don't want peace, get out. I think that the whole society would have been like, oh my gosh, look at how great Obama is.
Yeah,
But because it's orange guy bad,
man,
it
bad.
it's just it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's funny, and I'm not trying to direct this down the political spectrum, but here's where you and I agree on a lot of things. I just don't think that we need to go into another useless war. And
No.
this war, regardless of how it affects us, is not our war. Russia is beating the Ukraine. The Ukraine cannot recruit enough people to fight on their behalf. It looks like the European Union's potentially willing to put boots on the ground.
Yeah,
That's not something I want to be a part of.
no, I don't either. And the back end of that is if you stop and look at the everybody in the European Union that's talking about putting boots on the ground, none of them are exactly, military rich. I mean,
No,
most of Europe has depended on us for their defense for decades. I mean, like,
the other part of it is too is that, and here's what I've asked for, and I know a lot of the rest of the world has asked for America to stop being the world police.
yeah, me too.
And here we have a president saying, "Hey, look, we're willing to negotiate peace and help negotiate peace, but we don't want to sit here and be world police. If you don't want a ceasefire, if you don't want peace, then you need to not ask us for anything because this is what we're wanting." And there
I
was a lot of people on social
I don't
media that
understand
flipped
why people
out.
are so bent out of shape that it's like, no, we want this war to end, and oh no, Russia bad, and it's like, what? I mean, and they think they're the good guys. They're the
Well,
people that are actively calling for a continuation of loss of life instead of a peaceful resolution. I mean, I understand the scumbags in DC, all the Warhawk fucks that are, basically just, mouthpieces for the MIC at this point to, oh no, we need to keep fighting. We need to keep doing. I understand. I don't agree with it. I don't approve of it, but I understand where they're coming from. When you get all the Warhawks, the fucking Lindsey Grahams, and all these other pieces of shit that are like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna fight to the last man. Why?
but
What? What?
yeah,
Who benefits from that in the end? Outside of the people, I mean, the only people that really are advantageous to a war going on for a long period of time are the motherfuckers selling the guns.
yeah.
And I mean, you're killing off an entire generation of young people. You're destroying countless lives, destroying the land, destroying the resources. And at the end of the day, you get this guy who comes along and he says, maybe we need to stop fucking killing each other and everybody needs to sit down at the table and act like adults. And oh no, he's fucking Satan. He's literally Hitler because he wants to stop people from dying.
Yeah.
I
And
don't.
this is the only president in my lifetime who has not been at war. And that's crazy to me. Okay, number one. Number two, you mentioned Lindsey Graham. Did you see what Lindsey Graham came out and said after all of this?
Yeah, I absolutely stunned the shit out of me. I did
Yes.
that was not on my bingo card. I was like,
No.
somebody probably told him you're not going to get reelected if you don't shut your fucking pie hole.
Yeah. But for somebody who has profited off of wars for as long as he has, to come out and say that Trump did exact holy shit. And there is one thing that I'm a little skeptical about this administration on, that everybody is in lockstep with communication. And like everybody tweeted, President Trump did a good job, and everybody tweeted we had such a great first cabinet meeting. I mean, it was almost media like, you know what I mean, where everybody tweeted the exact same thing. So I am kind of watching that a little bit, just in my own skepticism. But for Lindsey Graham to come out and say that Zelensky was in the wrong, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, like I said, that would not have been on my fucking bingo card ever.
No,
I,
no, no.
I mean, Warhawk's going to hawk, and that motherfucker is the worst of them. But I mean, I hate the guy. I really do with the passion of
Yeah.
it. I hate him almost as much as I hate my governor. Um,
Your governor is weird, man. He
that
is.
that fucking jelly filled fuck muppet.
When you're fatter than Chris Christie,
Right? I mean,
I mean, you know, like I am a fat motherfucker. Like, don't get me wrong here, okay? I am as round as I am tall. But here's the thing, I'm not going to go out and tell people how to live their lives. And I kind of feel like no matter what you're pontificating,
I will.
you have to, yeah. But no matter what you're pontificating, you have to have some blood in the game, right? So you have to show that you're doing it. And this is why RFK Jr. as the health HHS administrator is a great role for him, because he's very passionate about it, and I believe he'll make it. I hope he'll make a difference. I hope he's
And he,
allowed to make a
yeah,
difference. You know.
yeah. Oh, I really, I mean, I would be so happy if he accomplishes a third of what he wants to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I don't even get. I honestly, and this is going to sound horrible to some people, but again, fuck it, I don't care. I don't even really care about the pharmaceutical shit nearly as much as I care about making our food not be poison anymore.
Yeah.
Because the pharmaceutical shit will fall by the wayside if our food is actually not killing us.
Right.
Because, and I'm saying this is somebody who works in the industry, who, particularly now that I work in the medical field of the food service industry, and I have to be so much more conscious of some of this shit as we're trying to, treat food as part of the treatment of prolonging people's quality of life.
Right.
And it's like I'm looking at the shit going, I mean, nutritionally, it's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, I guess for me it's job security, but at the same time, it's
And
like,
that's the same thing for the medical field too. I mean, for them it's job security, but well, at least for the pharmaceuticals, I should say.
yeah.
But there's the other portion of it too that I wasn't really privy to, at least in my whole thought process. But when you're dealing with undocumented people, in a state like California, where they're offering them free healthcare, or New York, I think that they're doing the
Or
same,
Illinois.
or Illinois. Um, and that's great and all. Like I'm all for helping people out. I think that if somebody has a broken arm and they show up to the hospital, it doesn't matter what their race, creed, or whatever are, they should be treated. But the other part of it is that there's a diminishing amount of doctors. And when you're creating doctors, you don't do that overnight. You have to do a sequence of education that takes at least 2 decades, and you're rolling into somebody who then has to do clinicals, and almost like an apprenticeship, if you will, in order for them to be an established good doctor. And that's just for family medicine. If you want to go into like cancer research, or heart, or whatever else, all of that creates a specialty, and all of that takes time to establish. So when you're dealing with free healthcare, like people think that that's a right, and people think that it should happen. And I'm not saying that if somebody has a broken arm they should be gone. All I'm saying is that that person who doesn't have healthcare, doesn't, or is given healthcare over, let's say, a citizen, that takes time away from a doctor to be able to see the citizen, because now there's an overabundance of people all having the flu or whatever it is. The reality is that you're diminishing the amount of doctors, and so now wait times skyrocket. How many other illnesses are now impacting other illnesses because they're not being treated, all for the whole purpose for non-citizens to have free healthcare. It doesn't make any sense, and that's why you see a lot of doctors that are leaving because they're short staffed. They're burned out. Nurses, the same thing. Nursing is a field that they want extra people in. As a matter of fact, my primary care doctor, I haven't seen him, I want to say, in 2 or 3 years. I've seen a licensed nurse, or a,
Yeah.
yeah, licensed practitioner, and or nurse practitioner, excuse me. And he's really good. I like him a lot, but I haven't seen my primary in a few years because, there's still a shortage.
Yeah.
It's the whole economy of medical that people don't understand, that, well, everybody should have healthcare. Oh, okay,
Oh, yeah,
that's
but the people
fine,
that don't understand economics in general either. I mean,
right?
it's not just the economy of healthcare they don't get. They're because I mean, well, you know where I stand on things. I'm firmly established that nothing that requires someone else to do work is a
Right,
right. So
right.
it's like, no, you're asking for a highly specialized, highly educated, highly trained, highly invested, probably highly in debt individual to just say, oh, well, no, everyone deserves what I worked for because reasons, because feelings. And it's like, that's not how it fucking works. I'm sorry. If you I mean, like, and I agree with you. I don't think anybody should ever get turned away from like, but and without going into the whole shit show that is the American insurance system, because
Hmm.
I can tell you from experience, just due to the period that lapsed where I didn't have prescription coverage for like a month, and I didn't have like was like uninsured for 26 days or whatever, between when I started my new job and when I lost benefits from my old job. And I was actually paying less for prescriptions, well, not all of my prescriptions, but for a couple of my prescriptions without any insurance.
Yeah,
I pay with my copay.
right.
So it's utterly fucking ridiculous the way the system's set up. And
Yeah.
and that's
My
stuff they're trying
my
to dodge too, I mean, they're trying to find where all this waste and double billing and all this other shit's because all the Medicaid is getting just abused like a motherfucker.
I think Doge is a magnificent thing, and I'm really hope, I don't care if they give us rebates or the tax
No,
returns or
I
whatever.
don't.
That none of that shit makes any sense to me as far as giving us the money, like pay down the debt. But I think it's magnificent, and I think that they should do it within each state. Each state should have their own thing to try to hold things accountable. I know that we have legislatures and they're supposed to do that, you know, state senates and whatever, but corruption's a thing that as soon as you get a taste of it, it's one of those things. It
Stronger than crack.
Yeah, it's a high you'll never experience in another way. And that's why I don't understand. I mean, trump Trump and the White House or whoever put out a post that said that basically the border crossings are at an all-time low. There was like 8,000 border crossings in the month of February or something, comparatively to however many hundreds of thousands of border
Yeah.
crossings that there were. And when you look at that sort of fix in 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long it's been, um, how come we were just allowing that to happen for 4 years?
Yeah, it's well, the
You
fact that
know,
it was fixed so quickly shows that it was like deliberately
it was
allowed to
purposeful.
happen. And
Yeah.
the same with all the repairs going on in North Carolina right now.
Hmm.
Roads that have been shut down for months were opened in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's which just goes to show it. It's not that it couldn't happen; it just wasn't a priority. It wasn't being allowed to happen.
So Rogan was on, had Elon Musk on. I want to say he came on Thursday or Friday this last week,
Uh,
and
Recently here.
yeah, and I listened to it and was just enjoying it. The one thing that came up though that they were talking about, so they were talking a little bit about Doge and whatever, which was really what I wanted to listen to. But as far that wasn't the entirety of the episode. The episode actually talked about the astronauts that are still up in space at the space station, I guess, and they're trying to bring them back. And one of the things that Musk actually brought up was that they actually could have brought these guys home like 2 or 3 times already. Um, the only vessel qualified to bring them back, because Boeing has issues, is SpaceX. NASA doesn't have a vessel that's capable of bringing them home. So they have to rely on SpaceX. Well, because Musk ended up throwing his support behind Trump, Biden scheduled the return of the uh, astronauts till after the inauguration date because he didn't want SpaceX to get the credit while people are voting.
Yep.
And so you look at that and you're like, okay, are we really doing the right thing? Are now that's Elon Musk's account. Okay. Is it truthful? I don't think he has any reason to lie about it. He's going to bring them back regardless.
Well, the thing that have you seen on Twitter? One of the astronauts has been talking shit to Elon Musk about the whole thing,
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah.
"I wanted to come get you guys, they won't let me."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a shame for them because they're so disconnected with the world. They're probably only getting mass media up there, if anything. And the sad part is that their bones are decomposing while they're up there. I mean, they're having serious
Have to go through
health risks.
physical rehab when they get back on the planet.
Yeah, and what should have been, I think, an 8 week trip or something has turned into like 8 months. It's unreal how we've treated these American. And then do you ask Russia to bring them back, which was another part of the conversation in this podcast? And you could, but how does that look that Russia's running to the rescue to the United States? And I'm just so sick of the politics of it all. And it's not the discussion on policies, right? It's not the discussion on, hey, should we make this more affordable? Should we outlaw this? Should we do this? Should we do that? It's we can't do that because of how it will make us look,
Oh yeah,
the
no.
optics of it
I
all.
was going to say people don't have any value compared to the optics of the situation to these fucking clowns.
Yeah.
I hate them. I hate them all.
It's just garbage. It's just garbage. But I'll tell you, I know we were talking about it a little bit before, but I've been out of podcasting now for um, a few months, I
Yeah,
think,
3 months.
um, something like that, and it's given me a more valuable opinion as a fan because I was so done with podcasts, like listening and promoting and everything else while I was in the thick of it. And now I listen to other podcasts and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what fun podcasts are like. So
Yeah.
I've been listening to you, like I said, and Walt from B Raw, but I've had more appreciation for mainstream podcasts lately because I hated them. I detested them before because they're taken away from the indie podcast market. Now that I'm out of the indie podcast market, it is whatever to me. It's
Yeah. Get it.
not really going to matter. But I'm really enjoying that there are some good conversations that are out there that are creating dialogue, and I think that I hope that that continues because I believe the podcast market, if you will, was a big influencer over the last several years
Oh yeah.
on politics within this country. And when you start talking about bad decisions that were made, there's been a lot of discussion on them that hasn't been on CNN or Fox News or any of these um, that's been valuable conversation. And in particular, it's the women or the men and women sports
Oh,
that's going on. And I think that probably the most dynamic thing that happened. Well, I think there's really three dynamic things that happened to get Trump elected, and whether that's a great thing or not, we'll find out. But um, the first one was the "What is a Woman" campaign that Matt whatever his name is did from the Daily Wire. He had that documentary,
yeah.
and that really put people on the thought process of, oh my gosh, like why are we having these crazy conversations? The second one was Elon Musk buying Twitter and like legitimately allowing people to say whatever they want. You look at what Kanye's been saying. I know you want to punch Kanye in the face, but you look at
Yeah,
what
but I
Kanye's
have
been
my own reasons
saying.
for that.
But you look at what Kanye's been saying, and he's an idiot, but he has a platform to say it, and that's what free speech is. And I don't agree with what he has to say, but I agree with his right to say whatever he wants to say. But then the other thing that I think that has really influenced society is the podcast market, because you have people who probably wouldn't have um, any value to mainstream society, like Sean Ryan as an example,
Yeah.
um, who goes out and just answers questions, and even some of these comedians who are in the podcast market, um, like what's his name with the mullet? I can never remember his name.
Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn, when Theo Vaughn's talking with Trump about cocaine, I
Yeah.
was just like, this is the funniest shit that I've ever seen in my life. This
Yep.
is so funny. So I mean, I just have more value, I guess, as a spectator now than I did when I
I
was
can
in the middle
appreciate
of
that.
recording it.
You're
Yeah.
kind of removed from the situation where you can just sit back and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
Although, speaking of comedians, just completely changing the subject for a second because I'll forget if I don't. Yeah, I guess my kid went and saw Tom Segura last night.
Really?
Yeah, I had no idea. A little heads up would have been nice, but
Right?
his fiance posted some stuff on Facebook, like pictures of them at the venue and stuff.
That's awesome.
It's like
That's awesome.
that's cool. And then I always have my little default whenever she posts something with them. I'm like, holy shit, he's smiling in a picture. I mean, for the first 25 years of his life, I don't think I ever had him smile in a picture ever.
Yeah.
12 years of him mean mugging the camera every year at picture
Uh-huh.
day, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's it. Comedies. I went to a comedy show last night. It was a local, it was a, so we have one comedy club, if you want to call it that, here in Carson City, where I live. And it's at a casino that probably shouldn't really be a casino anymore. Like if you wanted to know what a casino was like in the 70s, like this is the casino you should go to.
that carpet on the walls and
Oh, it's yeah, it's
nice.
it's interesting. Anyway, the lady who was the headliner, she was on America's Got Talent, and she didn't win, and which is why she's on doing a comedy circuit at a fourth rate town kind of thing. But she was fun to see. But what I don't like though is people who are just pissy. Like you have to have the right expectations, and right, you have to have the right expectations. So I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine and we went to this comedy show last night, and we're sitting there, and she and I are talking to each other and whatever, and we're laughing. She's coming up with a couple good jokes. Um, nothing's really a banger, so I can tell she's still kind of trying to find her way, but she's funny. She's funny, and she mentions Trump. Okay, and this table next to us is just a complete groan. We're just like, oh, and it's like she didn't say what her politics are at all. Like she just mentioned Trump, and then she was talking about her dad dying and making jokes about it. And this whole table's like, I'll bet you he died because she wasn't funny. And I'm just like, you guys, just if you're not having fun, just leave. You know, like
Yeah,
there's no purpose for you to,
no call to be that miserable.
yeah, and especially in a comedy club. Like you should come in with zero expectations, and if they meet them, then great, and if they exceed them, then even better. But yeah, it's interesting. Comedy's something that I think is turning back around, though.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
it's starting to get its teeth back, I think.
yeah.
People are more willing to talk about things that, oh no, you can't talk about that. Yes, the fuck you can. But
I don't watch Saturday Night Live, but I did
I,
hear about
I haven't
their
watched it in 20 fucking years.
same. I saw some clips on social media. They had an in memoriam, which I thought was actually pretty tasteful and funny. And it wasn't an in memoriam for people who had died. It was in memoriam for jokes they could no longer tell. And I was like, that's that good for them, like
Anything written by Richard Pryor, Sam Kinison, Mel
even
Brooks.
Norm, even Norm for that matter.
Yeah.
you know but yeah, I mean it's interesting because you're seeing that a lot of these things come back, and not to make it political again, but the Gulf of America, I think, is the funniest joke
Uh,
that's not even a joke. I
it's
just think it's
such a
so
troll.
exactly, it's an absolute troll move, and I'm all the way for it because it's trolling, and when
Yeah,
people are freaking out about it, it
I,
just makes me feel better.
I honestly, I didn't care until people started having a meltdown. Then I was like, you know what, this is fucking hilarious. You
Yeah,
can't believe you think that's funny. Well, no, I think how you're reacting to it's funny. Who gives a shit?
yeah,
Like, and if you want to get technical, Mexico is in Central America. It's all America.
Exactly.
The United States actually borders more of the Gulf than Mexico does. And then, you say things like that, and then you get these assholes that are like, well, this all used to be Mexico once upon a time. It's like, well, yeah, but here's what happens: borders change, titles change. Texas seceded from Mexico way before anything else happened, before they joined the United States. Texas was its own nation for years. So they told the Mexicans to get the fuck out. It's not like I mean, if you literally, if you go far enough back, nobody has any claim to the land, because
Yeah.
before the current indigenous Mexicans were there, there were, other Mesoamerican tribes that had different names that were completely wiped out at one point or another in some sort of conflict. So anybody who tries to say, well, this is all stolen land, yeah, you know what? It's been stolen land since people were able to pick up sticks and poke each other with them. It's not literally nobody has a birthright claim to fucking anything other than where they stand. You
Yeah.
either earn it, you take it, or you fucking lose it. Those are the options. There is no inherent right for any one group to say, well, this was ours before it was yours. Yeah, well, you fucking lost it, didn't you? And furthermore, not a single person is alive today who could say they were alive when that was the case. So you're realistically bitching about nothing. It's a fucking straw man argument at best, and that's being generous. As opposed
Nobody seems
to,
to bring up the fact that we lost Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, the Washington Redskins, the
oh yeah, no,
Cleveland Indians.
but
Like,
her Oates fucker's still on a box, isn't he?
exactly. We even lost the Indian lady who was on the butter. I don't even remember what the butter was.
Land O'Lakes.
Land O'Lakes. Yeah.
Lost the Indian, kept the land. Sounds pretty
Yeah.
good to me.
Sounds pretty American. So I just don't get it, man. And that's why, I love talking with people who have an opposite view than me. Not because I'm trying to convert them or any reason. It's just I want to know why your thought process is this way. And on Unfiltered Discussions, one of the final guests that I had, Panama Red, he and I had a wonderful interview. But before the interview, we had a conversation, and after the interview, we had a conversation. And I think we agreed on 90% of everything that was on there. And then Trump got elected, and we haven't had a political conversation since, which is fine.
Yep.
But I have a friend of mine, Carlos, who will always argue the Democrat thing. And it's funny, we went to Twin Peaks the other night. Don't know if you have a Twin Peaks where you're at.
We have a Twin Peaks.
They're the upgraded version of Hooters. I really like them.
I'm a big fan of plaids, so
Yeah, I'm a
we
big fan.
got one. I want to say maybe 11, 12 years ago. Um, and I wound up going there with my kid and his friends. One day I took all the boys out to lunch, and it was just kind of funny because they're all, teenage boys at the time, like
Uh-huh.
15, 15. Oh, you're boobies, boobies. And, meanwhile, I'm just sitting there just laughing, just chuckling to myself, like, oh, poor kids. And one of Al's buddies was just like, oh, dude, she's into me. I'm like, you're fucking 14. She's like 25. No, she's fucking not. Did you hear the way she was talking to us? I'm like, she's flirting to get tipped. You smooth brained fuck. I'm like, why would she be
He's
flirting
gonna
with
be in for shock when he goes to a strip club.
Yeah, no, I told him at that point. I'm like, dude, just remember, waitresses and strippers are not actually into you ever.
That's fact. That's a fact.
You know how you know a stripper likes you because you find out she's a stripper after you talk to her at the bar for 3 hours.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You never
Same
find
thing.
if you're at the strip club and a stripper talks to you, she doesn't give a shit about you. I promise.
Exactly. But yeah, we ended up going to Twin Peaks the other night, and it was funny because it's two of my buddies, well, four of my buddies, four of us, I should say. Two of them hardcore Democrats. One of them's a Republican, and I like to think of myself as an independent. So, um, but we had the whole conversation, and I said, "Hey, here's something we can agree on. There's tits right over there."
Yep.
And we were four 40-plus-year-old men sitting
We're all
around
pro titty.
drooling over titties and beer. And you just, if you want to unite society, make the flag a titty. Just flap it in the wind.
Well,
It doesn't.
Dennis Leary said back in the 90s, he said he knows how to fix the world. He's going to take the Goodyear blimp and paint it to look like a giant tit.
Exactly.
Fly it over the Middle East.
I've never heard that, but yeah, that would be it too.
Much.
You
Yeah.
know, in a previous job, I had a friend of mine or a coworker who, he's from Africa. He's from Nigeria, and he sounds just like he's from Nigeria. Um, and he looks just like he's from Nigeria. And one of the things that he and I we stopped, we had a training class, we stopped to get some coffee, and I was really curious just about what his experience was in Africa. And he's very pro like Chinese government and pro Cuba and all that sort of stuff. And why? Why does that matter to you? And it's because those are the countries who have helped his country out in his opinion, right? Regardless if he's right or wrong or whatever, that's what happened. And so okay, but as I started talking with him about some of Africa's issues, 'cause Africa's a huge fucking continent. Like people don't understand that. There's so many countries, but Africa's a
Yeah.
huge fucking continent. And they all have different wants, like socially and politically and independence. And I mean, it's crazy. Um, and I just was able to sit down with him and have a conversation with him. And it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Um, but I think that more people should be able to do that and not sit down and go, "You're dumb, and here's why," and just listen for a minute. And then if it expounds on a conversation, then have the conversation. But listening to people, I think, is a pretty good thing, unless they're saying, "Hey, we want to sleep with children." And it's like, no, here's a bullet.
Well, no, you can listen to them, but then when they're done talking, you've put them in a shutter.
I don't know why we're waiting.
Yeah.
Just the moment it comes out of their mouth, it's just like, okay, shredder. Let's just let's just go.
Well, now I got a car with a tow hitch, so I'm thinking about picking one up and just taking it with me places.
Hey, I got a question for you actually, since you're in the Chicago area. I got two questions for you. First question is there's a lot of talk that Chicago might be turning red. Is there some truth to that?
There's some validity to that. Now the problem is Chicago is still an utter cesspool of corruption.
You're right.
You know, you can be dead for 20 years and you'll still be voting Democrat. And I mean, people joke about it, but that's the fucking truth. It really is. The system is so corrupt and so broken. The fact that it is as bad as it is right now is sort of a testament to that because but in the last cycle, like Cook County, the county that Chicago
Yeah.
is in, is literally the deepest blue stronghold that flips the entire rest of the state.
Right.
Without that one county, this would be a red state.
Okay.
And I mean, there are a couple other blue counties, but none of them have the population density of that one county.
Right.
So,
Right.
and like I said, it literally is. You put Cook County and like the other 4 or 5 blue counties together, and it literally overrides the entire rest of the state. And it's the problem is, and that's usually how it works in pretty much every major blue market is the urban areas are deeply blue and everybody else is like they're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
But in this last cycle, the traditional strongholds of their their support, the broke, the poor, the pissed upon, the dependent upon society people were shoved off to the side on behalf of the new chosen imported illegal base. And there was again, you know, those counties still came out very blue, but not as blue as they had been. And there are like active movements of people going, no, this is enough. We want, you know, election integrity because there's no way in hell you sons of bitches actually won. There's a lot of aldermen, alderpersons, whatever, in Chicago that are like actively calling out the establishment. And even though, and some of them are Democrats, but even they are at the point where it's like, this is horseshit. You're not supporting your constituents. You're not supporting the
Right.
people who elected me to office. That you know we're supposed to be reflecting democratic values, and instead you're reflecting this globalist horseshit. And So they have lost that base, and there is an actual movement coming out of some of the worst neighborhoods in Chicago.
Hmm.
And you know, and not the kind and I'm saying this not to be a prick. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact. Not the kind of neighborhoods you would expect a strong red push coming out of. But these are the ones that are like the mayors abandon us, the aldermen are not doing their jobs, they're not doing right by us, the government's not taking care of us the way they're supposed to, and if they're not going to do it, we're putting them on notice. And a lot of these very tough neighborhoods of, I mean, because if you look traditionally and historically, a lot of political shifts do start in the piss poor slums of
Yeah.
what society, whatever culture
Yeah.
across history. You know, the French Revolution, the fucking American Revolution. I mean, granted, the American Revolution was put together by a bunch of landowning, farmers and whatnot, but compared to they were not royalty, they were all just average guys who were sick of this shit and being treated like they were less than. Now, the irony of the situation of the founding of this country is not lost upon me, where it's like, well, yeah, you think you don't like being treated as less than the British nobility, but at the same time, you still own people. But
Yeah.
that's
Right.
a whole nother fucking conversation, because I don't see slavery as a melanin issue. It's happened to literally every
It's
culture out.
happened to the Irish, the Native American. The
Irish,
Native American owned slaves. I
French,
mean,
Native Americans owned each other.
yeah, the blacks owned each other too.
Blacks owned.
Like
Well, yeah, no, that's
it
the
were
thing.
it
White
were
people
black people that
chasing
put
black
black
people
people
down
on
in
the
Africa
ship.
and put them on the ship,
Yeah.
because that never we wouldn't have caught them. I'm just being realistic. A bunch of white guys in heavy armor, with guns or not, we're not catching a bunch of black dudes in the fucking plains. We're going to be too busy looking over our shoulders for lions and sweating our asses off in the sun. These
Yeah.
guys were traded by other black people. So every time I hear that narrative, like, oh, well, white people bad, that's, it sticks in my craw. And I'm like, then let's look at the word slavery for a second. Just its
It comes
etymology
from
comes from
Slovakia.
Slav, as in Europe, Eastern Europeans, because they were getting traded by the Barbary pirates as chattel slavery. And it's not a ethnic centric concept. Every group of, and again, that goes back to, like I was saying earlier, you go far enough back on the timeline, nobody has a claim to shit, including nobody has a claim to say we were the most pissed on upon group in history, because every group has shit on or been shit on at some point in history.
Yeah.
So, dwelling on the past and saying, well, my ancestors got treated like shit, so you owe me free shit now, is just the most weak minded bullshit approach. But anyway, I'm derailing myself here, but yeah, so it's not surprising to me to see this shift coming out of the fucking hood, because again, these are the people that feel the most legitimately betrayed, because they allowed themselves to live in squalor as a generational curse of being generations dependent on a system that was never intended to be a lifestyle. It was supposed to be
Right.
a hand up.
Right.
And once it became and it was encouraged to become a lifestyle by the people that perpetrate this shit on those broke people. And then when they are no longer getting their, let's face it, not great life, but their sustainment out of this, because there's a new favored group of piss poor motherfuckers to be taken care of by the elitists. All of a sudden they're like, hey, wait a minute, they they did this shit to us, and now we can see it. It's like all these assholes that we were thought were being racist and ignorant motherfuckers might have been right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that's the movement, that it's shifting more right. It's not necessarily that just, well, you guys fucked us over, so we're going to go support these other guys now. But because I've talked to some people that are actually more close to the ground. I try to avoid Chicago if I can fucking help it, like all the time. I work close enough to Chicago that I don't go to work without a gun. That's just where we're at. Not that I'm, and I've had a couple of people, well, dude, what are you so afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything. I got a fucking gun. I mean, it's not, and even without the gun, I'm still not afraid. I just don't want to have to be the guy facing off with somebody with a machete, with a
Yeah.
with a towel.
It's about the confrontation, and it's the eat or be eaten, or whatever you want to call it. It's the
Yeah.
fight or flight.
And that's the
So
mentality a lot of people in this country have forgotten exists. And when you
right.
bring a bunch of people who are very deep in that mentality, uh,
Yeah.
you have prey and you have predators. And
So the other thing that I had a question about, because it seems like the winter over there kind of influences some of these mass murderers,
oh yeah, no, it's too cold to kill people right now.
But as soon as the ice starts to melt, specifically back in the 70s, which I realize you weren't a seasoned person back then, but
Uh,
I've been watching.
that was a bad idea at that point. That's about it.
Yeah, I've been so you're what, 40, 45? Is
40,
that how?
46, just
46?
just
So you
a
were
little
born in what, 70, 78,
78.
77, 78? So you were probably still too young to experience some of these things, but I've been watching some documentaries lately, and the John Wayne Gacy documentary, that happened all in your neck of the woods. Now, I don't know if
Yeah,
you were there or around
I
at
was
that
I
time,
lived in Wisconsin back then. So.
but when all of that was happening, was that even a conversation in your household at that time? Do you remember?
I remember some it came up because something was in the news, and yeah, even as a child, I was always still kind of like, "What's going on?" No, don't talk down to me. Tell me what's going on. And believe it or not, I mean, I feel like that's one of those things. Like nobody that didn't know me when I was young would. Oh, bullshit! You weren't like that as a kid. Nobody's like that as a kid. Yeah, yeah, the fuck I was. You can ask my mom. She's got no reason to lie. I've pretty much always been a like, don't talk down to me or you'll piss me off type of person.
Yeah.
Even as a child, I was just, and I mean, part of that might have been how I was raised too, because like I was not raised with the, like baby talk, and I was my grandmother was a very big influence in my life, and she was like, no, you're going to talk to him like a person because he's a person, and this kid is got miles of smarts and blah blah blah, and which if she knew how I squandered things, I think she's very disappointed now. But like I mean, like, but I could read at like 3, and
Right.
so I mean, I'm not saying I'm exceptional. I'm just saying I was not the normal person, and I'm sure part of that was my upbringing, and part of that was just how whatever's coded into my brain that doesn't fire like normal people does. I mean, I've said it jokingly, but I think it's true. I'm probably a little bit on the spectrum, but when I was a kid, the spectrum didn't fucking exist.
No,
So
it was reading Rainbow.
yeah,
That's what it was back then.
and we learned to process things slightly differently.
Yeah. And then a little later we learned that the magic school bus can actually be in your asshole right now and you never know it.
You never know it.
And
Frizzle decided to make it go huge, and
exactly. Why did I just fart? Um, but Dahmer was also in another
Dahmer,
area that you
yeah,
were
Dahmer
around.
was in Milwaukee. I was actually right between two of these massive serial killers. Fun story about Dahmer. Uh, actually, a couple of fun stories about Dahmer. The more direct involvement of Dahmer is my stepmom used to work at the diner that was right down the street from where his apartment building
Oh,
was.
no shit. Wow.
That one of the like escapees came in there, and yeah, she actually had met Mr. Dahmer on multiple occasions where he came in with guys that he was bringing in or whatever, and she's like, yeah, he was always kind of creepy, really weird, quiet guy, just made everybody a little uncomfortable, but nobody could put their finger on why. I'm like, and she's like, it wasn't because he was gay, because we saw plenty of gay guys and nobody gave a shit, but he just something about him was just a little off. She's like, I actually was off the night that the kid that got away came into the diner, but I'm like, I don't need to. That is so fucking creepy.
Yeah, that's small world stuff right
Yeah.
there. That's kind of
But then,
crazy.
but the other thing is the apartment building that Jeffrey Dahmer lived in there in Milwaukee is actually on the campus. What's considered part of the campus of Marquette University.
Oh,
And after the apartment building went up for sale, the university bought it, demolished it, and put a park in, and so there would never be a house there again to you know get rid of the murder tourists and all that shit, and
right.
you know all the morbid sons of bitches that wanted to be there. So when I was working at Marquette, I actually was standing there, and we were doing a cookout in that little park pavilion area, and I'm like,
You weren't the first.
Didn't there used to be? Yeah, I was like, didn't there used to be a building here? And that's when one of the other managers explained to me, like, "Oh yeah, no, this is where Dahmer's building used to be." And I'm like, "I thought there, yeah, I remember because it was actually right down the street from a concert venue I used to go to all the time when I was a teenager before they knocked the building down." And I was like, I used to go to a venue right up the street here to go see concerts, and this used to be a building. And they're like, "Yeah, the school bought it and knocked it down. They didn't want people, doing murder tours." I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I've not been close enough to any of that sort of stuff in my life, but of course, those are pretty popular if you want to call them, or notorious murderers. And ironically, they're both intertwined because I think Dahmer and Gacy actually had some communication while they were in jail.
yeah."
Um,
I heard
but
that effect, but
yeah, but yeah, it's just weird. I mean, I'm not a murder tourist by any
oh
means,
yeah,
but I
no,
do I do like history enough to where if a murder documentary or something comes on, like I'm interested in just the bare bones of it, like what happened and what was the result,
yeah,
kind of thing.
I probably know a lot more about murder than I want to.
Yeah.
Well, no, just because I got a wife that's into that true crime shit. So.
So you just have to be on your best behavior is all that means.
Oh no, I guarantee if I die, she did it, and she's gonna get away with it. 'Cause the way she watches true crime stuff just terrifies me because she'll just be sitting there and be like, that right there is why that bitch got caught, and I'll just be,
Uh-huh.
and then like it turns out this was the break detectives needed. And I'm like, I love you.
We've got here in northern Nevada, so I'm right next to Virginia City. I mean, Virginia City is a 20-minute drive, and if people don't know what Virginia City is, it's basically an old mining town, but it's a cool place to visit. But there's a number of mine shafts that you will never find the bottom of them,
Oh yeah,
either because it's not safe to find or because you're not meant to find the bottom of it. Right. So if anybody's ever watched Yellowstone and they talk about, we're going to the train station, we've got a mine shaft. We can take you to the mine station. It's an interesting thing, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sure if I had to protect somebody or something, I mean, I could kill somebody. But I'm not actively looking for the opportunity. You know what I mean? Like that's just
yeah.
not who I am.
It'd be more of a
So
responsive thing, not a planned out thing.
correct. Correct. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because the Midwest was full of like serial killers at one point.
I think it's the weather. I really do.
I think so too. I think it's for those two in particular. I wonder what the effect of the image of gay and homosexuality was at that time, because both of them were homosexual, I believe, if
Mhm.
I'm remembering both of
Yeah,
them correctly. And I
you're
wonder how much of an effect that played on. I mean, I'm not justifying that because they were gay, that they were killing people, but I'm just
a
curious, like
degree of
how much of that played
human
into
psychological impact.
yeah, their
I'm
decision
sure that was
making.
part of it, but on the other side of that coin, I grew up with a massive gay bar, like 5 minutes down the street from my house. I don't. Well, no, maybe 10, depending on traffic. 10, maybe 10, 15 minutes from my house. It was actually right off of the major highway that goes from like Chicago to Milwaukee.
Hmm.
Right after you get over the state line, big gaudy ass building, it was Club 94, because it was on I-94. And yeah, it was just huge gay bar. Nobody gave a shit. I mean,
I think that there's more focus on homosexuality than really people care about, to be honest
yeah,
with you. And I think that it's probably been that way for a long time. I'm not saying that they haven't been disenfranchised. They absolutely have. I mean, we're in my lifetime, gay marriage has been a hot button issue and a non-issue at the same time because they've passed legislation. So in a certain way I can understand that, but for a long time I don't think that, and this is me speaking from a white man, heterosexual white man. So if you don't like it, that's my perspective. But I mean, I've known people that have been gay all my life, and I've
yeah,
never once had an issue with it.
and I think that's partly at least a generational thing too. Like you got the Gen X millennial block where it's at some point in there we just stopped caring.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? That's great. Good for you. And I remember when the gay marriage stuff was an issue, and I was talking to some friends about it. And when it was, oh well, why gay guys want to get married? I'm like, who gives a fuck? They want to be miserable like the rest of us. Let them. Jesus Christ.
One of my favorite movies is The Birdcage with Robin Williams.
Oh,
And
I love the
and
bird.
it's such a great film, but I had no clue what a palimony was. And that was like this little MacGuffin in the movie, you know.
Yeah.
And little did I know that later on in my life that would be something that was argued about. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy gay people can get married. I remember when I think it was I don't remember if it was a midterm election or if it was a presidential election, but there was a lot of talk on gay marriage, and there was a I don't remember if she was from Kansas or where she was, but she was like a court clerk or secretary of state or something, and she wouldn't honor gay marriage licenses, and she for religious reasons she wouldn't do it. So she was put out of office, but she was divorced 5 times.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'm like, you're not the person to be speaking on this. You know, it's like Rosa Parks' husband had a car. It's
yeah.
so funny to me. I shouldn't laugh, but he could have drove her to work and avoided the headache. Like it's just, I just, but Rosa Parks was a great spokesperson for the issue, right? So it I don't like the whole messenger of it all. But yeah, gay people be gay. I don't care. I think that gay people are people just like the rest of us. They want to
Exactly.
make money. They want to come home to somebody that they love. They want to enjoy their friends and family. They want to go see a movie every once in a while. They're people.
Yeah, I mean,
They're not any different than me or you,
it's not like they have three fucking eyes and you breathe fire and have a tail.
right?
I mean, they're
Right.
people. And
But on the same on the
frankly, I was gonna say, frankly, I happen to know a couple of a gay couple that I absolutely adore. Um, in terms of like relationship goals, I'm like, these two gumps are the happiest people I know. They're completely in love. They've been together for Christ, almost 30 years. And they're just like they are relationship goals from every single possible metric. And which just goes to prove it's got fuck all to do with your naughty bits and everything to do with your quality and content of your person. And
correct.
like, and part of it is, and like I said, these are two gay guys. They are my friends. I bullshit with them just like I'm sitting here bullshitting with you. And we have things we don't agree about. I will say ignorant shit to them. They will say ignorant shit right back to me. They don't have a problem dishing it out every bit as hard. I don't get bent out of shape when they make breeder jokes because I think they're funny too. And I don't care. We're friends. We talk shit. But the one thing they said is, and I wish I could like logistically apply this to my own relationship, but it's just I'm not wired that way, and I don't think my wife is either. But they said, oh well, basically we just never got out of the dating phase, and I'm like, good for you guys. I'm happy that works.
Well, there is a fun statistic though, because I have a friend of mine who's a lesbian, and I always make jokes that she's going to marry her boo thing, you know,
Yeah.
and she's always telling me, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And it's funny because the statistics came out. It said that uh, gay marriage, men to man or man to man, it has like a 30% divorce rate. And then heterosexual marriage is like a 55% divorce rate, but then gay marriage, lesbian or woman to woman is like 77% or some god awful thing. And it's always used in the case that see women are the reason why women are the problem with marriage or whatever. And so I get a laugh at that, but it obviously that's all in jest. But yeah, I just I don't think it really matters anymore if you're gay. Like if you're gay, it's fine. On the flip side, though, South Park had this great episode where they're having to testify in court. And I believe, don't quote me on it, but I believe that they were being charged with a hate crime or whatever for using the word fag.
Oh yeah, with the Harley Riders.
Yeah, yeah. And they had to put the definition out and leave it to South Park to come out with something like that, you know.
Like, you ride
But I
around on a motorcycle making all kinds of noise, ruin everybody's nice time. No,
well,
then
then
you're
you're
not
not a
a fag.
fag. And I love that perspective
What if
because that's how we grew
a
up with it.
motorcycle rider is gay? Well, then he's a gay fag. Why don't you
Exactly.
guys get this?
Exactly. And that's how we grew up with that word, right? The word has never to me been a term where it's been demeaning to a gay person. It's always been like, you're a chump kind of thing, it's or you're a douchebag. It's always been you're a fag. And so the other part of it is that retard is now coming back around too, which is another one of my favorite words
Well,
of
for some of us, it never left. I'm just saying.
yeah. And I agree with you there. But one of the things that I love is that that's coming back. And so, like, I was talking to my mom the other day. I was helping a friend paint a wall in her house. She had this accent wall, and she's a single mom and whatever. And I was like, hey, if you need some help, I'm happy to help you. So I show up and I'm helping her paint this wall, and my mom calls. And because I'm painting, I got the phone on speaker, and my friend's son is running around making a whole bunch of noise while I'm painting this wall. And she goes, I think I said the word fuck or something. And my mom goes, yeah, Brian, you shouldn't be talking that way in front of that young man there, because he might be the future president of the United States. And I said, Mom, I will guarantee you that the current vice president of the United States has probably called somebody a faggot on Call of Duty. And that to me is just the reason why JD Vance is a boss.
Yeah,
Like,
he's not bashful. I'll put it that way.
no, he's not. He's well spoken. I've not seen a politician like him in a long time. I,
Yeah, it's
you know,
it's it's kind of refreshing. I mean, from where I'm sitting,
yeah.
and there's something else I was looking at where it was like, and it made me laugh. It was something I don't know if it popped up on an Instagram feed reel when I was doom scrolling the other day or something, but it said something about to everyone who's been complaining about where's Gen X been for all the well the
Mhm.
world's going to shit and blah blah blah, and it said that the average age of Trump's cabinet appointees is 54.
54. Yeah, I
Welcome to
saw
the
that
find
same
out.
thing.
Welcome to the find out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it is nice to see that. It is extremely nice to see that. I look at this was an odd election. I don't mean to keep coming back to politics, but this is a really odd election because this was the first time in potentially all of US history where two former Democrat presidential candidates flipped and endorsed the Republican candidate.
yep.
And
I
to
think
me, like, people don't put enough value on that. People think that they're just crazy and kooky because that's what the media wants you to tell. But Tulsi Gabbard to me is one of my favorite humans. I would have absolutely voted for Tulsi Gabbard had she won over Joe Biden
oh yeah. I
against Trump.
probably would
I
have
would have
too, to
absolutely voted for
be honest.
Tulsi. And I don't agree with her on 100% of things, but that goes back to if you agree with somebody on 100% of things, you're probably brainwashed.
Yep.
Um, but I thoroughly enjoy the discord that is happening in this administration. Hopefully, where people are being challenged and it has an opportunity to really make some really good progress within the United States. And we'll see. I mean, all of this could be for naught. I think that JD Vance is probably going to be the next president because the Democrats still haven't figured out their messaging yet.
Yeah.
And
I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. And honestly, I'm kind of here for it because
yeah,
I, I
he
I
comes
like
across as an
that.
absolute bro.
Oh, he
He's just an
totally.
absolute bro. Like, I've always said that if there was a politician that I wanted to have a beer with, it was Bernie Sanders. Not because I'd vote for him, not because he was, but because he's just weird and kooky, and I really want to have a beer with him. That has absolutely changed. I want to have a beer with JD Vance.
Oh yeah. No, I would definitely have a beer with JD Vance. I honestly I wouldn't have a beer with Bernie anymore because I'm pretty sure he'd want me to pick up the tab. And
Yeah,
like, no, you can give me some of my tax money back and you can pay the tab, motherfucker.
I'm here again asking for your beer money. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. I
I'm
could
here
see that.
again asking for a microbrew. I don't drink domestic.
Yeah, he's probably a double IPA kind of guy anyway, which isn't
Yeah.
my kind of flavor. So,
No,
but
no.
if you're looking just for a trash beer, just something to make you piss, like, it's fine, whatever, no big deal. But I would still have a beer with JD Vance. JD Vance comes across to me as this very well spoken,
Just average.
good guy. Yeah, just an average dude.
Yeah, he's just, I
Um,
mean, he came from nothing. He worked his way up to the vice presidency. I respect the hell out of that.
the one person who was kind of like that to me before was the eye patch guy, but now I can't stand the eye patch
Yeah,
guy.
I hate him.
He's become a deep state fucking douchebag. And but when he was first doing it, I was like, oh, here's a guy speaking rationally. And then you started seeing the change of the leaves on that guy, and I was like, yeah, this is. And apparently, he's now making death threats to Tucker Carlson,
Oh
which I
yeah,
saw on
I saw that. Now,
Twitter.
I am actually probably of a less popular opinion out of the more conservative side of people. I mean, I hate Crenshaw for a variety of reasons. In terms of a death threat towards Tucker Carlson, I honestly believe, and again, because it's the way it happened. It was a hot mic situation. And I mean, I myself have said it about multiple people over the course of my life, man, if I get a chance, I'll kill that motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm not going to actually go out. It's just the way people talk sometimes. And I think it was probably more of a that kind of
that's
situation
probably what it was.
and
Yeah.
a legitimate, like, I want to kill Tucker Carlson. Here's my copy of Catcher in the Rye. My neighbor's dog told me to do it. No, I mean, he
Exactly.
was probably just like, man, I hate that. I'll kill that motherfucker. And, got caught. Now, granted, he's in a situation where he should be more aware of his circumstances when he's
It
like,
was out of his
fucking
view.
yap,
Yeah, but it was out of his view. The camera and the microphone
Yeah,
were
they were standing on the wrong.
they were on the bad eye. But I've been saying for a long time, and going back to the Democrats here, I've been saying for a long time that the Republicans needed to work on their messaging and they needed to get on the same page. And you saw that there was the warmongers, and then there was the rhinos or whatever they called them, and then you had the even right now they got the former Tea Party people, but they don't call them Tea Party anymore. They call them something else. I don't know
Yeah,
what
well, then
they're
you, like
they're
the
the
never
Liberty Party or something.
party and the
I don't know, but
Freedom
they've
Caucus, I think
the
it is.
Freedom Caucus, yeah, but their messaging is starting to become a little bit more in unison, which is also scary. But then the Democrats, they don't have a message right now. They don't have a message, and I know who's probably going to run for
Actually, they
president. It's
they
probably going to
kind
be
of
Gavin
do
Newsom.
they kind of do have a message. It's just not a message anybody wants to hear
Sure,
because
sure,
they haven't adapted it to the fact that they fucking lost.
right.
You know,
And I think that you're probably looking at a Gavin Newsom or a Pritzker
I
or
hate
even
that.
a Shapiro or somebody like that that's going to run.
Well,
And
the
because of the
problem
messaging,
I
I
see
just
with
don't
that
know
though,
that it's going to happen.
baggage behind Newsom and Pritzker is this. They're both current governors of states that are in the
On fire,
like one's on fire. Literally, the only reason Illinois showed a net population increase in the last census was because they counted illegals.
right?
I mean, it has been like literally the state's own statistics show domestic born, local residents has declined by like 140 some thousand people minimum.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
net loss. And people are moving out of the state in droves. And they're supplementing those numbers with, like I said, non-productive, non-resident individuals, but they're still counting them. So well, no, we have a population boom. No, you have 300,000 illegals to
Right,
offset the 290,000 fucking residents that have moved out of state.
right.
And like, I mean, I'm of a split mind on that. I hate this place. I have hated this place since before I moved here. Just being from Wisconsin and growing up right on the border of Wisconsin and Illinois, I hated Illinois. Not because I was raised to hate Illinois or anything like that, just from being around enough people from Illinois where I hated fucking Illinois because I was exposed to people primarily from Chicago. Urban Illinois people are the worst human beings I've ever fucking directly interacted with in the course of my existence outside of politicians.
See, you and I are speaking the same language because I live the border to California is a 30-minute drive away in two different directions, right? So
Yeah.
my people that I get over here are all San Francisco people, which is exactly why I hate the fucking 49ers. The
Are
49ers
the
and the
toilet train?
Philadelphia Eagles can just die. It just die.
Well, I mean, I'm technically a 49ers fan, but
Everybody should die but you. But then we shouldn't talk in the fall.
well, no, in case you haven't noticed, I generally keep my mouth shut because the only
How did you become a 49ers fan? How come not Green
well,
Bay or the Bears?
well, see, the thing is, particularly growing up in Kenosha, which is like I said, right on the state line, there were literal households divided between Green Bay and the Bears.
Right.
And I really, when I was old enough to start appreciating football, the team the 49ers put forward in my formative years as a football fan.
Montana.
Montana, Rice, Young, just on the whole West Coast offense, unbeatable, doing shit nobody had ever seen before. And I was just like hooked. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then, they started to suck. And that's the other thing about being from the Midwest. When your team starts turning into a shithawk, you don't just say, oh, well, I'm going to switch teams now.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, well, yeah, my team sucks now. Sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Guess we're going to
Yeah.
suck. And you just own it. And now my backup team, if I wasn't watching a 49ers game and I had to pick between like the Bears or Green Bay, like when the Bears inevitably played Green Bay, I usually pulled for the Bears just because more people were rooting for Green Bay that I didn't like out of my social circle
Ah,
than
that
were
makes
rooting
sense.
for the Bears. So I was like, no, we're going to root for the Bears because fuck you, and fuck you. So that's so the Bears were my backup team.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was not. I'm not a San Francisco fan in any sports really. I mean, I can kind of get behind to a certain level the Giants, but that there's really no fandom there. I became a Cowboys fan when I was a kid, and through my grandma,
Just like
and
Troy Aikman's ass.
she liked Troy Aikman's ass. But since then, I've adopted all of the Dallas teams just because I listen to Dallas radio. So the Mavericks, the Stars, the Rangers. They're at this point they're just my teams, regardless of how big of a fan or how little of a fan I am. Those are my teams. So it was fun
And
watching the Rangers win the pennant. It was fun watching the Stars last season. The Mavs, I was super excited for this season, and they traded away the best player in the NBA, and I was like, oh God, this is bad.
we suck again. Oh no, we
Exactly.
suck again. Yeah.
It was bad too because we drafted the guy. You know, it's not like we acquired him somehow. Like he was a Maverick, and now he's with the Lakers. Why would you trade anybody to the Lakers with LeBron? Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
that's a whole nother. That's I hate LeBron. I'm with a pat. I've always hated. I hated LeBron when he was in high school and they were talking about drafting him. I was like, fuck that motherfucker. Let him pay his dues like everybody else. I don't care if he's 18 and amazing. Fuck him. And he has never once done a single thing that swayed my opinion of him of being a fucking just media propped up, overhyped prima donna cunt. And I hate I hate him.
I
I mean
hate the
I was wishing debilitating injuries on him when he was before he could fucking buy a beer. And part of it was spite. I'm not gonna lie. Part of it was like fuck this motherfucker for getting a multi-million dollar contract at 18 because him bounce ball real good and he's tall as fuck.
yeah.
Damn squatch looking motherfucker. But but like I said, the other part of it was like from the first interview I ever saw with him, and you can expect a certain degree of arrogance from an 18-year-old just because they're fucking 18.
Right.
But he had that in spades, and he had a fucking air of entitlement about him, even at that age, because he was good at playing a game, and he had spent his entire formative years having his fucking ass kissed by everybody who
Yep.
came across him, and it just made me sick. And I have hated him from the jump.
I hate the argument of who's better, him or Jordan, because yeah, okay, Jordan's or he's started to get more stats than Jordan, but he's also played 20 years or not 20 years, but 15 years longer, 10
Yeah.
years longer, whatever it is. And Jordan by far, it was in my opinion, was was and is the best NBA player of all time. I don't know that
And
there's
overall player too, and he was a leader.
yeah,
People
he
followed
was
him.
he was defensive, he was offensive, he did everything. And you look at LeBron, and I think if Kobe would have stayed in and not ridden helicopters,
Yeah.
I think Kobe would have been the closest thing to Jordan that we probably
Kobe
could
would
have
have been in the
seen.
conversation, and I
Yeah,
respected Kobe a lot more. He was,
I did too.
yeah, like
Um,
LeBron. No, I, ugh.
Yeah, I think LeBron is a good player. I think LeBron is absolutely talented.
Oh no, he's a
I'm just
very
not a
talented player,
fan
but
of
he's
LeBron.
a cunt.
He yeah, he's the Taylor Swift of basketball, is what he is, really what he is, you know.
Yeah, and ain't no party like a Diddy party. He told us so.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Last thing on the whole political spectrum, and then we'll go from there. And I don't even know if this is politics, but what did you think about that sideshow of the Epstein release that happened this past week, where they had all the
That was
binders
the
with
worst fucking
conservative?
blue ball.
Wasn't that
Fucking
stupid?
oh, here, look, we brought in these influencers and we gave them binders. What do the binders say? Fuck all.
It's
Oh,
just travel log. It's not travel logs, but
it's
it's
the flight
flight
log.
logs.
Horseshit. We already had that.
Yeah.
And then it's oh well, the field the office in New York's not handing over any of the paperwork. Well, put those motherfuckers in jail. I mean, everybody's like, oh
Hmm.
well, people need to be fired. No, people need to be fucking prosecuted because they're interfering with an active investigation. That's a fucking crime.
You shouldn't have released anything for a media
Yeah,
prop
you
if
should.
you didn't
They should.
have it.
That was definitely a fucking fumble. They should not have.
100%.
I
I
mean,
don't know how I feel
granted,
about Pam Bondi.
I don't.
Pam Bondi.
That's one
I
of the picks I was not real solid on. I don't like her. Like, she's pro red flag law, which I unilaterally oppose. I don't. She's weak on Second Amendment stuff, which to me is that is like deal breaker shit for
yeah.
me. It's I
I'm
don't want to ever be a victim. So
yeah.
you
I'm
would
very pro 2A. I think that people who have mental instabilities of some kind, like I have a hard time justifying 2A with that to a certain degree. To a certain degree. Like if somebody's that, schizophrenic as an example, but they're medicated, like should they not have the right? Like I'm confused on that. But then what happens when the
if you're
meds wear
legally
off or
educated, mentally deficient, no, you really
correct?
you're
Like there's
to yourself and others. No.
yeah, and so I
Soever that's even that, and I hate the term slippery slope. Because that's one that came up when I was a kid, where they're talking, oh well, if we let them gays get married, next thing you know, they'll be coming for the kids. It's a slippery slope, and I'm like,
yeah,
at the time, I hated that people said it. Now, for various reasons over the course of years, the thing I really hate about it now is how the left has proven those assholes to be right, and now I have to agree with those worthless bunch of cunts. Like, well,
yeah.
maybe you were right. I mean, it was fine when it was just the gays that wanted to get married, but look at where this fucking went. And
Yeah, exactly.
to get on my social commentary soapbox for a couple minutes, I figured out something about this, and a lot of people are gonna get bent out of shape. But this is a thought I had the other day, and it actually dovetails quite nicely with this whole slippery slope concept. And the biggest problem I think that where the alphabet community, the LGBTQIA elemental PQRS plus.
Batman symbol.
Yeah, Batman symbol, Green Lantern,
Uh-huh.
Wonder Woman. But yeah, at some point, easily distracted. Sorry, boobies. Um, but no, the thing about it is, before it got co-opted by the trannies and all the other politically incorrect things I like to say about people that are stupid, and the people who are using, these causes to make themselves feel special instead of doing any kind of real work on themselves to have some self-worth. They can go, oh, well, you can't talk about me because I'm non-binary or I'm two-spirited or sometimes I feel like a nut, sometimes I don't. I'm an almond joy. Today I'm a mounds. But ultimately, everything was fine and everybody was cruising along and the L's, the G's, the B's, because the B kind of precludes all that other nonsense that comes after it because by means there are two options. All that other horse shit that is tagged on afterwards is redundant. I totally stand with the Rainbow Coalition of the L's, the G's, and the B's. That's fine. Give
Well,
me the original three letters.
the L's, the G's, and the B's are an orientation. Everything else is an identity.
Yeah.
And
But
that's where we get wrong.
well, that's where we started to lose the thing. But where they lost the narrative, where the identity people really started fucking up, and this is like I said, this is something I figured out the other day. It's when they stopped wanting to be accepted and started wanting to be celebrated.
Yes.
these identities. When it stopped being good enough for people to just say, you know what, I accept you for who you are, and they started, no, well, no, you have to tell me how brave and stunning I am that I want to be this different thing. No, I have to accept that you want that. I don't have to celebrate your choice. That's a you issue. I don't give a nickel plated fuck about your personal shit. That's
Yep.
your shit. I
Yep.
don't have to, you don't need a parade to tell you how wonderful you are for having your shit. You don't need a discount voucher at certain stores. You don't need a holiday. You don't need a daytime talk show special. You don't need a nightly news recap. You don't need a segment on SNL. You just need to be accepted. I need to say it's okay that that's how you feel. That's all I fucking owe you as my fellow human being.
That's it.
And people got sick of being told, "Well, no, you have to tell me I'm special." I mean, it's like when you get the fat drunk chick at the bar walking around, "Tell me I'm pretty." No, Bertha. I'm going to call a Uber and hope you fucking fit. I mean,
I love I love the meme that goes around. It says, women are always talking about how beautiful and empowered Lizzo is, but
yeah.
then when you call them Lizzo, they take offense.
Oh, exactly. And that's actually there's a guy who was going around doing this for a while, and I was like, that's fucking genius. Where he was going around interviewing like women on the streets, and it was always little groups of girls that were out for a girls' night out, and you could always tell they'd have a few drinks, and then he'd be like, "So when did you come out as trans?" "I'm not trans." "Oh, what do you have against the LGBTQIA community?" "I don't have anything against them." "Well, so why is it a problem that I thought you were trans?" I'd be like, "You're selling it really well." "I don't look like it." Say it. Say it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the same thing. They're all for saying that trans men are women or trans women are women, but until you call them one and then they get bent out of shape.
Or they're trying to regulate women to being inseminated.
Inseminated
Um,
individuals, yeah.
yeah, and it's just like,
Happy
is
inseminated
this
individual day.
is this what we're really is this what we really think about women? Not we, you and I, we, but just generally we. Like, do are women that inferior that we now need to call them inseminated individuals? Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, and that goes to the lunacy of the left right now, and that's something that I just can't get behind. But
Yeah, now, like I said, that's where they completely jumped off the rails, and then they have the audacity to be like, "It's not an attack on women." Well, it kind of is.
if you're taking away women's sports, which they get recognition for, scholarships for, awards for, and you're including men in those sports, you're where are the feminists? That's like been the biggest question of mine. Like, where are the feminists? If you're a feminist, why don't you have an issue with this? Like, that's
Well, because that would require acknowledging that trans women are men, and they're not going to do that because I don't understand the mental gymnastics these people are capable of
yeah,
to convince themselves that they can say all this shit with a straight face and without the slightest hint of hypocrisy, where they honestly
right.
believe like the two things are not mutually exclusive. Yeah, they fucking are, Beth, if that is your real name.
It's
But
short for Bethesda, but yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say it's short for Bethamo.
Heap hop anonymous. I fucking love it. Well, Aaron, it's been a blast, man, being on here with you.
For sure.
I do miss interacting with you. I know that we're connected through socials, and I text you every once in a
I was
while.
saying, yeah, you've got my phone number. I mean,
I do have your phone number, so
I'll admit though, I am actually I'm every bit as guilty because it's like I don't text anybody, I don't call anybody.
yeah,
I am a fucking hermit 99% of the time.
yeah.
Usually I'll get a wild hair at my ass where I'm like, I wonder how B word's doing. Let me send him a hey, what's cooking? It's just something stupid, but
My problem is the Hey What's Cooking is like 6 or 7 reels.
yeah.
And then I'm like, and then I go back around my day, and so I've been pretty bad about reaching out to people, but you offered a platform, and I have no scheduling conflicts, so this worked out pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm glad we could sit down and shoot the shit for a while.
Absolutely. Hopefully, I was entertaining enough for your audience, but I'm sure that
Fuck them
this
if they
was
don't like it.
exactly. I mean, unless they're not my type, then we won't do that. But
They're my audience. They know I love them, even if I'm telling them to get fucked. So,
well, yeah, man. Again, thanks for having me on. This has been fun, and it's been nice catching up and all that sort
for
of stuff.
sure.